Welcome to another episode of Mental Health Matters. This is Tom Duff, Executive Director, St. Louis Counseling, also licensed clinical social worker, therapist at heart, and welcome to the podcast that helps break down stigma and talking about mental health. Our goal is to get mental health talked about around the dinner table, just like everything else in your day. And as always, we bring on intriguing guests that can just talk and have conversation and talk about different aspects, because we all know all of us have mental health, just one part of that, of our health, our overall health. So you have physical health, you have mental health, and there's ebbs and flows to that, and different life experiences takes us up and down on those. I'm feeling so philosophical. Up and down those ebbs and flows of our life. But I am excited today to have Kendra Jones join us. How are you, Kendra?
Doing well. Salutations.
Very nice, very nice. Kendra, you bring quite an interesting skill set.
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah, so biomedical engineer.
Yep. Biomedical, aerospace, automotive. I've done the gambit.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
And as well as comedian.
Definitely.
Yeah,
That
so
too. Get a little jokes in there sometimes for some balance.
yeah. So, engineering, is that why you decided to do the comedy side? Because, engineers are like, oh, you guys are dull. And
That's definitely the stereotype.
Yeah.
And I won't lie and say that the workplace feels exactly like that.
Uh-huh.
So perhaps, subconsciously I was seeking some type of balance in that way, because it's very, I would say engineering, other than like computer science, is like 20 years behind everybody else in terms of innovation and stuff. So it pretty much feels like you're in a 1970 era to 1980 office typically, in terms of office environment. So yeah.
So you guys got the big computers then, like
the
from
big,
back in the day.
huge computers, supercomputers with just the long printed, with the things on the side with the holes that you have to tear out.
Oh, that was fun. That was
I'm just young. I'm just old enough to remember stuff.
remember that. I remember being in school and then like, here, take the tabs off of these. And I was
Exactly.
like,
the
oh,
tabs.
okay, that's my
Yeah.
punishment for whatever. Hey, so I guess first of all, how did you get interested in a field like that? Like, what drove you there?
Comedy
that way?
or engineering?
Let's go engineering first.
Yes. Okay. Basically, I remember being in high school, and at first I used to always say like I wanted to be an inventor. Like, I just always had these ideas that I had like this whole invention notebook since the second grade, and I was reading something in a pamphlet that talked about mechanical engineering. And the skill set was so broad because my actual degree is in mechanical engineering. So with that, you do computer science, like we learn how to code. We do like work that the civil engineers do, so stress strain, that type of stuff. And then we also have our own like specific coursework that we study. So we kind of cover electrical, civil, all the other disciplines, like a little bit of everything, including our own. So it's really like in terms of breadth of knowledge, it provides you with a wide tool belt. So I was like, okay, that'll give me a little bit of everything to try to make some of these inventions a reality. And so I think that just kind of clicked with me, and I kind of never looked back for whatever reason. Like, I don't know, I never really even considered anything else.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So then college took you where?
Howard University, Washington, D.C.
Ah, very nice.
Shout out to HU, anybody listening out there, and all my other HBCUs. That's a big part of, we're going to get into that later.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
HBCUs is part of mental health for, collegiate people of color.
Very nice. I almost want to just go there
It
right
could
now.
almost be, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that right now.
That was so important. That was so important. And what we spoke about briefly before in terms of like me needing a lot of my counterparts going to like the U of I's and, what we typically call PWI, a predominantly white institution. I experienced like a lot of craziness that I was just almost not even aware of, because you kind of grow up and you're born and bred into it.
Yeah.
Growing up where I grew up in Belleville. So me leaving to go to an institution where I got to see the diversity of people of color was life-changing.
Really? So then, so I guess describe a little bit like when you got out there, right? And then all of a sudden you realized, wait a minute, you know, Belleville to DC, and then to be particularly on the campus of Howard, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you start feeling like, okay, I belong, I have this whole other support system I didn't realize?
It was so many things. Like, it was like a cosmic explosion of just self-awareness and all these other different things. But I want to tell you the first time that I had that wow moment. So I went to like a 2-week program to kind of get you acclimated, kind of do a refresher course and get you to understanding like college level algebra and biology and stuff like that for 2 weeks prior to me actually going to school my freshman year. Since the main cafeteria was closed, they had meal tickets for us to go to the Howard University Hospital cafeteria. And so I remember getting there, first day, you know, meeting new people, all that was well and good. But I remember when I stepped into the Howard University Hospital, and all I could see was people who looked like me in white coats.
Wow.
That, I'll never forget that. That in itself, and now I have to remember, it's hard. I know it was like shattering in a great way in terms of shattering a ceiling, basically. But that impacted me so much. Like, that is forever seared into my memory. Of like me literally standing there, almost like in a movie. Like, wow,
Everyone's
you don't
walking
always
past
have to
you
be
and like,
only,
yeah.
you know. It was interesting being in Belleville, and you know, you're in honors courses, and there's just like a stigma of you're either one of one or one of two. Or, you know, there's this minority, when actually people of color are the majority in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, you know, walking up to somebody at Howard and being like, hey, what's up? And they don't even speak the same language as you. That's earth-shattering for somebody.
That's a huge culture shock there. Yeah.
They speak French. They're from Nigeria. They're from the islands. They have a, you know, it's like, wow, they're skaters. They're nerds. They're jocks. There's a lot of diversity in people of color that I think that being able to identify as whatever you feel you need to identify as to be your truest self is important. And sometimes when there is not a lot of people who look like you, so you don't get to see all the different things you can identify with. So you're like, oh, I'm black and I have to play sports here, or else I'm not really going to have anybody to hang out with. Or the people I hang out with might not understand me and how I represent me and my quote unquote blackness. Like, that's important. So
before you went, were you even aware of some of that stuff? Because that's the world you lived in. So how could you be aware?
It took a lot of unpacking when I actually got to Howard to really even realize, like, oh my gosh, it was almost like a PTSD type thing. Honestly and truly, is when and the difficult part was like coming back.
Oh wow, yeah.
And DC is extremely diverse. Let's not even talk about Howard in that sense. Like, DC as a whole is diverse. It was also like a mind blow in terms of cuisine. Like, I was trying Ethiopian food. I was trying like Trinidadian food. I was just like, this is amazing. You could literally go into a bar.
Pulled pork from Southern Illinois.
And, anyway, so I went to I just lost my train of thought. Let me go back and rewind.
All the diversity, yeah.
So so I just didn't see that when I came back. It was very evident how stark the contrast was. It's like, if you're not black, you're white, and you might have a little bit of, you know, maybe an Asian person, or maybe like, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the same. So I struggled with that, like coming back to visit for a while. And I really never thought that I would come back.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but ultimately
I did, but it was for different reasons. You know, I had to find ways to create my own space, and why I'm such an advocate for HBCUs is because it teaches you how to be you.
And HBCU stands for?
Historically Black College or University. And so it teaches you how to be you, because sometimes you end up assimilating, or what we call sometimes like code switching, without like even realizing it. And so it's like, it taught me how to be myself and have that be acclimated to, instead of me always being the one doing the acclamations.
So how does that then, How does that feel for you to be able to have that and then to be able to work through those layers, right? But it's got to be some type of serenity or calmness that then you can have on the inside.
It's comfort.
Comfort.
It's a comfort of being yourself. Like, I don't have to be a certain way in order for my coworkers to respect me. You know, I don't have to, and if they don't, like, that's their loss. Like, it's not really, that's something that they should work on, not something that now there's levels and boundaries, but it at Howard, you just learn to, like, let people be them and not to judge. Because you could go and you could see someone at a party and all this craziness is happening, and then they go off and they're, top of their class in the pre-med program. It's like you don't know what people are capable of, and just allowing people to be their authentic selves is really how you get the best out of someone. So when people of color have to go into workspaces and they're not allowed to be their authentic selves, or they feel like their authentic selves isn't understood, then you inhibit them creatively from a productivity standpoint. When people feel comfortable somewhere, they give their all. Like, without really even noticing it. Because they're just, like, working. They're able to be them. It's not let me count down
let me get out of here
to when I can actually be myself. It's like almost putting on some type of mask for 8 hours a day. And
for the employer, it's like, why not embrace to let people be comfortable in their own skin, so to speak, the old saying.
The whole rabbit hole I went down in terms of, like, how I kind of shifted from allowing my mechanical engineering degree to kind of let me go through this. Like, I started businesses, I was writing patents for myself, I really, like, just dove in.
Going back to I'm going to invent stuff, right? Yeah.
That was the whole goal the whole time. So biomedical was kind of in that same vein, just doing it for the biomedical field. That creativity it was just an explosion. I felt there was nothing that I couldn't do. I saw everybody was just doing great things. It was like fertile soil. Belleville felt like I was always fighting. Like I was always fighting against something. There was always some type of, like, tension. And, like, I didn't feel that until I went to a space where there was not that, and I felt myself decompress. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so that whole time growing up, there's just that comfort side wasn't there, that just at peace side with yourself.
No,
and
but
until,
you don't know.
Yeah.
Because you create safe spaces within it because you have to, like, for your mental health. You know, your home, your group of friends, or whatever, who you sit with at the lunch table. But to be in an entire environment where it's fertile soil to do whatever. I sat next to April Erickson, who was one of the first women to graduate with a PhD in what did she graduate with? Some, like, physics or something like that. So, but basically she works at NASA. I sat next to her and talked to her like it was whatever. And I went and, I've been spoken to celebrities because Howard University is also known. So it's like literally the breadth of examples of who you're able to see from the top people in every industry possible, from sports to entertainment to academia. Like, everybody's there, especially their emphasis on African American studies. Dr. Carr, who's one of Dr. Beatty, these people are, like, experts in their field on. They literally would bring us in and be like, yeah, everything you learn in high school about this and how they tell you your history starts at slavery, like, that's a lie.
There's a whole different perspective out there, right?
Perspective.
Well, and I think you're describing it really well. So I'm a white guy, right? And so for me, yeah, right.
For those who aren't able to see it.
There is a picture of me somewhere out there, and I may have a little gray in my hair.
It works well, though. You got a little salt and pepper. Okay,
yeah, I put it in there on purpose to make me look distinguished.
Right. Yeah, you do. Very wise.
There you go.
Very
Good. But for us to understand, us white people, to understand, okay, the significance of having a university that's historically all people of color, right? And so the way you described that was what it does for you. Not only does it help you assimilate to your culture, but just that comfort in that world. So I think, it's pretty amazing when you can describe it like you have been.
It is amazing. And if we think about the time frame that kids are going from, this is basically an incubating ground for youth, for adulthood almost. And so in terms of what I think people of color need, college and university is not really all about academia. It's very much social, very much social. I almost feel like choosing college is solely based on that is a disservice. I tried to do that, and I was like, oh, where's the top engineering schools? And I visited the Rose Holmans, and it felt very much the same. I went to Howard by accident. They gave me a full scholarship. I didn't even know about HBCUs really. Senator Claiborne used to take the top students of color around, and he would tour us around, and we had to apply in order to go, and it was 2 weeks off school, and I was like, of course, whatever you need.
Yeah, I will
whatever
do that.
you need, I will provide. And some of my friends were going, so it was like, heck yeah. So I got a full scholarship, and
wow.
I had a brother and a cousin that was in that area, specifically. So that's why I chose it. And that was really as simple as that. Which is crazy, because Howard is one of those schools where people were like, my grandfather and my mother went, and it's a legacy school. And I was just like, they're giving me money, and I got a couple people there in case something goes down. It's 15 hours away from home. See ya.
I'm going to experience life.
Please. Oh, these move?
I'm
glad they do.
They're fancy microphones. They move a little bit.
Yeah, I love the studio.
Let me ask you this. So being in the working world, okay, so from growing up, you go off to Howard, then you get to the working world. I don't know the stats about engineering. It feels like there's a lot of men.
White male-dominated field.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
So how do you function in that world then? Or what have you run into? That could be more interesting.
To be honest, the thing is when you come in as yourself and you kind of just, the acclimation that we feel like we have to do is kind of a little bit on us too, to be honest, people of color, because we find ourselves wanting to fit in, but it's you're not necessarily supposed to. Sometimes people will just naturally adapt to whoever you are. So it's we feel like we have to fit in this box, and that may have been true, however many years ago. But once I went to Howard and I start working in corporate my sophomore year, I worked for Chrysler for an internship, and I just was me.
You were you.
Yeah. I had, at that point, I'm a year and a half into Howard. I don't feel like there's anything that I would need to hide. And so everybody acclimated, and they loved that. And I was unapologetic about how I entered the workplace, and that internship was pretty crazy because I had a project. The project did really well. There was patents written for the project, and there was a certain amount of animosity. I can't say particularly if it was because I was black or, because I was a woman or just because I was young. And some of these people that were working there, I went in and solved a problem in 8 weeks, and they've been working there for 20 years. So
that's a trifecta. They're young, African-American, female.
You don't know what. You just know that there's a little bit of angst.
Yeah, smart.
So I'm I was like, oh, well. That's one thing that I will say. It coming from a space where I had to be resilient in those spaces was almost perfect. I really have no regrets about how I grew up, because Belleville made me resilient, and then I went and flourished in fertile ground. So it's the mixture of those two in corporate has served me very well.
With leaving. Well, I guess let me ask you this. So now, as a female, do you find gender or race harder to maybe overcome in your world? Or is it you just feel it?
Definitely my Blackness. Because even, I just don't necessarily, there's just, yeah, I think that because that's really culture. So even, for people, let's just say someone who's Italian, like they kind of understand an Italian man and an Italian woman. They're a different gender, but they're also, they work and play well together because that underlying culture kind of links them. So I find it to be that, and it's really just that. It's just a culture. It's just a difference in the way, whether you're raised. A lot of us are. You don't even want to go back to all the history, but it's just like it's just a difference in how you're raised. And for those people of color who were kind of raised maybe more so in that vein, or maybe have been adopted, then they could find the transition a little easier. But just for me particularly, deep down south roots, and just also whatever else that has led me to be me up till now, I think has really been rooted in a lot of like, inherently Black and inherently, if you want to take that for African, or, certain things that have been passed down that have created my familiar
identity.
culture and is different, I found. So it's probably that. I would probably say, my Blackness for sure.
So then, and then, you kind of also mentioned figuring out who you are, getting comfortable with who you are. And really from there, it makes a lot of comfort, right? Inside of you.
Man, that's everything.
Yeah.
Once you feel, that inside of you thing, which is, that's it. And I appreciate this entire podcast and, the way you introduced it, because it is about everything, literally everything from mental health going forward is about inside. How do you feel inside? Do you feel comfortable? Are you comfortable inside? Like, I think that's really, that is what we've labeled it, the different sections of it, different things, depression, anxiety, but it's like, they're really pointing out places of discomfort, and that adjustment and finding, fixing or putting into order those different sections, I think is overall about a comfortability.
Yeah, and like you said, until you explore that, with yourself, you don't know what it is sometimes until you take the time for yourself to either slow down or schedule the time and figure out, what, and, some people go to therapy and counseling for that. And some people figure out, on their own through meditation or whatever it may be, what works for them. But yeah, it is about figuring out like what makes me happy.
Figure it out. Go where you need to go. If you feel like it's an environment, leave. Like really, honestly. And that's another thing we were talking about in terms of something that I kind of consider an act or behavior more of my parents kind of in their era versus now. What I like about that is these conversations are like amongst people my age and younger becoming table dinner conversations. And the getting up and leaving, I don't feel right here. Like and this is not to be like, to consider myself unreliable, but if I don't feel comfortable like in a job, I will make plans to leave. Like if I can't be my authentic self, I'm going to make plans to leave. And I think that is a very quote unquote millennial thing. It's not like, I've been here for 20 years and they're still, I'm like, I'm not
another
putting
10
my
left.
psyche,
I'm gonna do it.
I'm not putting my psyche and my mental health and emotional stability through 20 years of something that's telling me that this is not a space where I can grow.
Exactly.
What is the point in that? You don't get any brownie points for it.
Just suffering.
Just suffering, which is like, okay, we get it. Great. 20 years commitment, but commitment to what? Commitment to who?
You're miserable.
Right. Your job, your whatever, they'll replace you. Go where you feel happy. And that's not like a happy in terms of have no it kind of gets mixed up because people think that just means that anytime you feel slight discomfort, you just jet and leave. But it's a different type of discomfort we're talking about here. Not for someone who can't commit to anything, but being committed to the wrong things is where now you're compromising yourself. Not worth it.
That's you're right. Because sometimes people like jump on things, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
hear like a phrase, and maybe it's social media, I don't know, because it's so easy to do. But it's like, you raise a good point there too. It's like, not just because you're upset one day, I'm going to
Yeah.
start looking. And, I just think we always need to listen fully to people, and I think that's just another issue. I'm going off down a whole different rabbit hole
Please,
now.
let's go.
But I mean, you raised that point. It's like, yeah, and I'm not just talking about I'm unhappy one day, but I'm talking about there's a pattern. There's this like constant, like I don't like it here, so why stay? So it's like exploring that within yourself and then moving on.
Yeah. And kind of fear. I think fear, or being fearless rather, has become a common culture now, because we've somehow, through these last 20-30 years, like, I don't even know. I don't know why it happens. I just know it is, because like that sense of security maybe was removed. Like I'm not expecting there to be retirement for me. I'm not. But my parents very much were. You know, so they wouldn't leave because they feared that lack of security. Well, when the security is removed, it's like, oh well, let's get it. Like, let's do it. Whether we have to live, and we're leveraging the internet, whether we have to leverage whatever, like let's do it, because there is the safety blanket of our parents that our parents experienced, which was really almost a fallacy in itself, to be honest, has been removed.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is. That's why we're not afraid to get up and go, like, retention for millennials is down significantly. It's like, well, do what's needed to retain us. We will sit down with you and tell you what those are, but it's not going to be, if you're not adapting to your constituents, I don't know what people want to say, then you are going to lose.
Yeah. That's
but
so
it's a
true.
simple equation.
It's so true.
Adapt.
Yeah. So like, as a leader at an agency, and, I'd probably say, more than 50% of our staff are the millennials. I'm doing air quotes, but no one can see that. Because I really love the millennials. Because they bring so much energy, first of all, to what they do. We got these passionate social workers, but I was talking to somebody and they're like, I'm never going to retire. Because I'm just going to work till I die, and so I'm going to just not really have to save then, because then I'll end up on Medicare at some point too, But I'm like, oh wait, but aren't you supposed to have like a savings plan, And so I find myself in this mix where I'm listening to both sides, and I'm like,
it's still a balance. Don't get me wrong, because sometimes we can be a little bit far, and it's like, there was, don't throw the whole thing out. There was some.
Save a little bit, right? Save something.
Bit. You don't want to be out here, begging for change. But there is I think that's kind of the task given to us at this point, is like, find that balance, find where they were right, savings and how to do it. We might, there's so many ways to make money now. Like, you should be saving, you should be investing, even more importantly. You should be a lot of things. So don't just leave it all to chance. But
you gotta have a plan.
But freedom. Costs.
Yeah.
There's you gotta plan a little bit. You gotta plan a little bit.
So tell me about comedy. How did you end up going down this road?
Oh man, funny story. I don't know how.
It better be funny.
I don't know how.
You're a comedian.
How intimate I can be about it. It's not like anything. But basically, I had just moved back. I bought a house in South City. My mental health was not where I wanted it to be, so I become kind of insular. Only because I'm like very introspective, and it's like, something's not right. All right, shut this down. Let me figure out what's going on. And so I just found myself at a certain point, like, okay, I'm ready to kind of start venturing out and doing things. And I went on a date with this one guy, and it was more so just company, to be honest. Like, it was like, oh, this is nice. Like, I'm just enjoying. I'm also different in that way. I'm not so much a millennial in the dating escape. It's kind of crazy in that way. But I'm like, I want to know who a person is first. So I'm just chilling. Like, he's taking me to just different spots, and he said, I have a friend who's doing a comedy open mic or some type of local comedy show. It was a local comedy show. And I was like, wow, that's different. Like I've never been to something like that. That's very like New York. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
In St. Louis.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, let's go. So we went, and they're up there, and I'm like, I could do this. Which once I say that in my mind, it's over. Like it's only a matter of time. Determined. And he took me to another one, like maybe a week or two later, and it was at the Heavy Anchor. And I was like, but that one was an open mic. So that was like different. Like the other one was a show, and I was like, I could do this. And this was an open mic. So I saw like, oh, this is my way in. Like you can sign up and do it. Ooh. So I was like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it next week. Like I'm, hyping myself up. Like I'm gonna do it. Are you gonna be, stage fright, whatever? I did some public speaking and did, student government type things. So I was used to. You get very good at speaking. At Howard. It's very much that type of school.
You're going to
speaking
learn
in front of people, not being afraid, kind of being out there. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write something. I'm going to put my name down. So I went by myself.
Really?
Yeah, I drove down by myself, signed up, and did it. And people were receptive. But it was like I when I do certain things, the way my mind works is I already assume they're going to be receptive. Like that's
positive
it's
thinking.
A confidence.
Yep,
yeah.
confidence.
So I was like, you know what? Because I enjoy laughing. I say things, and my whole family, like, we're that family. Like, we're funny. Me and my sister can, like, we should get a podcast. That's how.
There you go.
It's back and forth all day.
Talk to Midcoast Media. Yeah.
Thank you, Midcoast.
That's a pun. Not a pun. What do you call that?
Plug.
Boom. Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah. Boom.
And so I did it, and it was great. And so I just, like, got swept into this underground comedy world. And it's crazy when you do certain things, and that's why I like exploring so many different things, is because you just figure out how many different worlds there are within the world. Like I've driven past so many things in St. Louis, and now it's like, oh, that's Helium, oh, that's oh, that's a comedy spot, oh, they have an open mic on Wednesdays. It's like a whole community of local comics, and the comedy world is just amazing. There's some amazing people there. So I really got swept in, and it went fast. And before I knew it, I was like hosting at Helium for, these big names, and I'm just like Faison Love, and I'm like, wow, this is, and doing it in front of 100+ people, and it's
wow.
I think everybody should do it. An open mic is something I think everybody should do.
Did you prep at all before the open mic?
I definitely prepped.
You definitely prepped? Okay.
Prepped.
So advice is prep a little bit?
Prep a little bit. Just, do what you feel is necessary. Now, I have also gone on when it was a little bit later and I got more comfortable. Like, I've gone in there like, oh, these are the general things I'm going to talk about, and let's just free flow and see what happens. That's level 2. That might be level 2. So that's how it happened. It was very organic and very much me, but it was very much needed for that time. Talk about mental health. That
therapeutic right there, huh?
Therapeutic for me. Wow. I don't think I had seen anyone seriously outside of my family like in a year.
Really?
Yeah. Almost without even realizing it. Because this particular period, like from 18 to 30 is a very much exploratory point in, I think, people's lives. And so I had been moved back. My friends that I had for umpteen years, like, they were also in similar periods of their life. So it wasn't so much that we grew apart. It was just like we were all addressing certain things in our lives that we felt. So I wasn't speaking to them. I didn't know anyone in St. Louis. I'm from Belleville. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, 18 to 30, and you think about, college years for you. Then, the brain doesn't even fully develop till age 25-ish,
so true.
And we always think 18-year-olds are adults, but
They're
it's
babies.
like, man, your brain isn't
They're
even
babies.
there yet. But yeah, so many things go on during those years. And I just think back, too, about those. I mean, they're just so formidable in so many ways.
Much.
Outside of
important.
college even, and learning and stuff.
Yes.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
And I'm still in the midst of it as I'm talking about it. But
yeah, you're a young one. No,
it's fine. But it's been, I needed comedy. Comedy filled a space for me that was very supportive. The people were very uplifting. It provided me with community, which is another point of mental health. A lot of times it is self, but sometimes community care is needed.
That support.
Yeah, that support. Like, we talk about self-care a lot, but community care is important. That support system. Hey, when are you coming to this? You know, when you were, before I'd be in the house for a week, and you know, my mom would call me every day, of course.
Of course.
Thanks, Mom. I love Mom. And but other than that, it's just, you just start to feel like, I don't know, it helps you get you out of a rut, going and speaking to people and laughing and watching the other people's skits and, hey, writing jokes together. Like, that's a...
Oh yeah, and laughter is so important. So important. And you know, there's connections to dopamine inside the brain in regards to, well, you know, sunlight, laughter, exercise,
and even just smiling. Even if you don't think,
they
wouldn't say like smiling, even if you don't like fake smiling for like 15 seconds or something, like fakes your brain and
exactly.
Like, I'm all into faking my brain.
It's like turn that frown upside down.
Please.
Right?
I need some little bit of dopamine. A little shot of dope.
That's dopamine. Okay.
Right.
Nice.
Say
that's new material. That's new material right there.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down.
Are you got any shows coming up?
No shows coming up right now. But I'm working my way. Like, it's just so random. How I've chosen to kind of stay in flow with myself may to other people seem like a little bit sporadic, but it's very much a flow for me. So I kind of gotten away from it, went that corporate route again. That still didn't really resonate. So I'm kind of back, and like yesterday or a couple days ago, I ended up writing this whole set out of nowhere. Like, so that's really how it happens. It's like, I don't like to, once I felt forced, and this happened in comedy, like I was like, everybody's like, you got to practice the same set X amount of times. And I'm like, I feel like a robot.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like a robot when I'm doing something that's supposed to be very, and I kept saying, I'm like, I've come from engineering. Like, this isn't supposed to feel like engineering.
This is supposed to be my relaxation.
This is supposed to feel fun. Like, I don't want to. So that's why I kind of stepped back, and that's when I started going more organic with it and kind of having like a loose topic list and just saying how I feel, because I want to be me up there. That's the secret sauce, not the rehearsed. You know, there's a certain level of it, but it's not like, I don't want to be like, pause. I don't ever want to write in a pause. You know, I don't ever want. I don't ever want to put pause. I don't ever. People go that deep, but no.
Yeah, yesterday we had an event at work, and it was more of a formal event, and I was like, okay, and I was going to present an award, and I was like, I need to get my thoughts together, and I started just like writing them out. I'm like, I'm writing a speech. And I hate that, but I'm like, this is kind of what the role is, though.
You surprised yourself. I'm writing a speech.
Yeah, I'm writing a speech. And so, you know, so then I was like reading it, you know, and I was trying to look up as I was reading it. And that felt uncomfortable, because I got to this point now where I just like to talk. And then like, it comes to you, right? And you're feeling it. But then the speech, it's like, wait, I'm supposed to read this, but I'm not supposed to feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as I'm doing it yesterday, I'm having all these thoughts. And I'm like, oh, just read it. Just read it.
So you end up just reading it?
Kinda.
And I feel like when I look at people who write, it's like, okay, you're reading a speech. Like, okay, we get it. We're trying to attach to the feeling you had when you wrote the speech, not so much the feeling that you're giving right now.
Yeah.
But it's like a different, like, that's a talent. That's something that's practiced, when people can go up and be like, these are my heartfelt sentiments in orders. I give full credit to orators and people who do that for a living, because that is
I just
some
rather
people
rattle
can
it off.
memorize their whole thing. That's level,
the hard part. Yeah.
That's level 10.
Yeah, level 10. You complete memorization.
Memorization, and so much so that you don't even have to, like, because you know sometimes you skip a word in your head and then your brain's like, oh nope, go back. Yeah. And then it's. But
that's
on
why
the
I wasn't
outside,
writing
it's an
yesterday.
Awkward pause.
Yeah, I was reading that. I'm like, oh, I skipped one of the words, and I'm like, and then But
that's why. That's why I just write bullets, because your mind can remember the bullets and you fill in the in between. So you get your structure, and you get your freestyle.
Exactly.
You can use that.
I think I might
go ahead and use that. Write that down.
I might just take that little snippet, and I'll just keep playing it over and over again.
Like an affirmation.
Yeah, there you go. It'll be your voice in affirmation.
You're welcome. I do what I can. It's for the people.
It's always for the people, right?
I'm so selfless.
Yes, exactly. Well, we've been here today on Mental Health Matters with Kendra Jones.
Yes, thank you guys so much for having me.
Man, this was, I got to have you on again because
Please.
there's so many topics that I want to get even deeper into.
Yeah.
You know,
This is a rabbit hole, but it's a good rabbit
Yeah.
hole. Like, it's a great rabbit hole to go down.
yeah, because, you know, you're articulate and you're articulate in the sense that you can like explain these nuances that helps other people understand, to help
Which
people
is-
put their shoes in their self in your shoes.
Exactly.
And that's what's so important.
That's
Yeah,
important.
because that's what we're missing a lot of times in society. People don't take the time to think. So like we were talking about, so I'm going back down the rabbit hole. We were talking about college and helping people understand why having a black college is important for someone for you to understand your culture, to
Exactly.
understand it, because you grow up in a culture that you don't look like. And I'm just, you know, and for people to take the time for a white person to take the time to try to understand that is where I think we lack so much.
We all need that expansion mentally. And even
Yeah.
from, like I said, when you're in a place like that, you know, the Midwest in a sense, and that word minority is always stamped on you, minority, minority, minority. When you go to a place and you see how diverse people of color are, it's like, now minority doesn't really even resonate with you. You understand that that's the title people understand, but it's like, there's so much people, you know, even myself coming there, and I can only imagine that, you know, white people do this, is like, oh, they're black. You see somebody and know they're black, but you see somebody on campus, like I said, on Howard, and they're from they could be from Cali, they could be from Nigeria, they could be from Turks and Caicos, they could be from wherever. It's like, oh, there's diversity within this. Like, you kind of get stamped as this minority, and it becomes a small little group that you feel like you're floating in, but when you actually know what it is, like, this is an expansive group. It's an expansive group, and I think that's important for everybody to really understand.
Yeah, there's more than meets the eye.
Way more.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kendra. This has been another episode of Mental Health Matters. And so keep listening, keep sharing, share us on social media, and we will see you next week. Thanks.
This has been Mental Health Matters with Tom Duff of St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out stlouiscounseling.org for more information.